Welcome to Mindful Escape, the podcast that inspires you to live your best life. My name's Leighton Jewett and I am your host, and today we have Jack on the show. Jack tells a story of how he moved from a estate agency into running his own business, back into an employed role, and then running another business. It's a really turbulent story, and he now lives a life where he can work from anywhere in the world. So listen closely and we'll jump straight in. Jack, thank you for coming on to Mindful Escape. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Jack. I grew up in London. I currently run a business which helps estate agents get more business, and we're hopefully growing that. I have not been living full-time in the UK for the last 4 years, I think. I used to work in corporate estate agency straight out of school. I kind of got a job very quickly at one of the larger firms in London through kind of luck. And I was there and I stayed in that path for about 10 years. And over that time, kind of realized it wasn't really how I wanted to live, in terms of, office, grind, work, grind, do it all again. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I just kind of learned after a while what I didn't want to do. And through a series of unplanned but quite fortunate moves, I've ended up doing something that I truly love, which is being anywhere I want to be, working. I'm still earning money. I've still got a job, but I'm able to sort of live my life on my own terms, which I'm really grateful for. That's the intro, I guess. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So this is a really interesting story for me because obviously I also come from an estate agency background, so a lot of crossover. Were there parts of the job or that career that you did like, or was it literally everything you wanted to get rid of?
No, I mean, well, I started working in that industry when I was 19, and I loved it. Like when I first got the job, I absolutely loved it. I left school without going to university. I was very prepared, and I wanted to work. I wanted to go to work. I wanted to make money. I wanted to wear a suit. I wanted to work in an office. Like I think I don't know. I had wanted all those things. My dad was an estate agent. He had his own estate agency, which was kind of very small, very local in London. And I saw him come home every day wearing a suit kind of thing. And that's what I wanted. Like I wanted that. And that's kind of what I ended up doing. Again, I kind of got the job through luck, but it was a good time to get a job. It was 2007. The economy was amazing. Anyone could really get a job at that time. And I did. I just got a call because I sent my CV, and I was lucky enough to get put under a very good motivational kind of boss slash coach slash mentor who kind of really took me under their wing. I was, fresh out of school. I was kind of, if I was given to another manager, I could have seen my life going in a completely different direction, but I had someone who kind of really taught me how to be a salesperson, essentially taught me how to do that. And for the first couple of years, I absolutely loved it. Like I loved the targets. I liked working hard. I really enjoyed the environment. I think it was a little bit after that, I kind of moved into a more senior position, quite young, which is, again, what I wanted at the time. And I ended up managing some people who were older than me. And by moving that position, I kind of lost the sort of mentorship of that person. I was kind of out on my own and out of my depth. And I went from a sort of top performer at quite a young age to being an underperformer. It was not a good move in terms of my performance in the business, and it was so that was really the first times where the kind of pressure of the job started to affect me quite a lot. But there were also things culturally, in terms of how I would spend my free time, office culture that seemed fun at the time, but it was a general roller coaster of, building up to the weekend, going out, all through like drinking a lot. I didn't realize it at the time, but I've definitely burnt out a couple of times as well. Got ill, but again, still powered through because that's what you did. And like, it was, yeah. And I didn't really know that what was happening at the time, but you just kept going. So yeah, I think the first 2 or 3 years was a really golden time. And it was kind of after that I started having these sort of feelings about impulses to leave and escape. Although I wasn't so clear as to what those were. And, I would find myself sometimes just browsing other countries, jobs abroad. I had this whole thing about like moving abroad, but I just couldn't figure out how to do it. Like what could I do? What kind of job? So it was kind of in my head. But yeah, to answer your question, I loved the beginning of it, but it was kind of a process of realizing it wasn't all it was supposed to be. And the other thing I'll say as well before we move is the company I was in, they really sort of they get you to buy into their culture and their brand. I wouldn't say indoctrinate. I think that's too strong a word, but you believe in the company and you work for the company. And I had conflicting feelings about leaving because I thought, well, I'm supposed to sort of be loyal and work for this business. And the idea of leaving seemed to go against my training, if that made sense. You weren't supposed to think there were better jobs out there. You're supposed to think this was the career path. So yeah, it was definitely transformative. And I was only 23, 24 at this time, when I was going through all of this, which was still young, I think, and still wasn't completely sure about who I was as a person whilst I'm going through this. So yeah, I've rambled a bit, but
no, that's great. And it's actually so interesting to hear you going through the different stages of loving it, enjoying it, feeling a bit burnt out, but keep going, the company culture, that grinding, keep working hard, keep getting results. And at what point in your career, because obviously you were thinking about leaving, you were looking at different countries, was there a particular moment that triggered you and you thought, that's it, I've got to go?
I probably stayed there 3 years longer than I should have. I was having these feelings, but I was there. I ended up being there for about 6 years. In the end, so through to join when I was 19, stayed till I was about 25. And I was kind of, I had this whole thing about, kind of move, should do something else and not enjoying it. I'd had my CV out there in places. And I got a call from someone who I used to work with, who was now at another estate agency, and basically offered me the same kind of job, but I was going to come over to this much smaller agency, but I was going to sort of, because of my experience at this point, become the sort of head of the department that I was currently working in. So where I was now, I was one of 100 people. I was a minnow. Now the opportunity was to be the main person and to build a team, which sort of sparks that thing in me again. So it kind of suppressed all the, I got to leave, got to go do my own thing. And I got excited again about kind of the same job, but kind of, it was a step up in terms of kind of responsibility and money as well. That certainly played a part. So I left when I got offered that job, basically. That was the catalyst for leaving. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was the bravest move to make, but it certainly took me into an environment where I don't regret anything I've done, by the way. Everything, all my experiences have led me to where I am now. And they've taught me so much. So my first job taught me how to sell. Where I went to next taught me how to recruit and how to train. I ended up meeting my business partner, Danny, now. He was where I moved to. So yeah, the thing that made me move was the next opportunity that sort of sprung up in front of me.
Yeah. It makes me think about my last, let's say, 4 years in a estate agency. I think I had a similar mindset to you. I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And I ended up moving twice within 3 years for a different position, more money, a different company, different culture. And then I ended up feeling the same at the end. Was that similar for you, or was it a different experience?
Yeah, absolutely similar. It was, again, very exciting at first, a great couple of years, very new, building up, you're the main person, you're doing well. And then, yeah, probably after the same amount of time, it's just sort of became this general grind. And instead of being the person, and the thing that I did as well was I took all the things, I tried to take the culture with me and impose it in my new, because I was kind of like the boss now. So all the things about team drinks and going out in the week, I kind of now imposed on my team and would organize these events, because I thought, because that's how I was taught you should do things. And like, you should incentivize the team, and it's very social and so, but yeah, it just became the same thing, just going to the office every day. You had to hit your numbers. There was always pressure from above. And I just didn't see where it was going as well. And another thing that kind of stands out in my point, I was at this point kind of living near London Bridge, and I had to walk over London Bridge every day to get to work, which was in the city. And that walk in the morning is full of suits, right? There's thousands of people walking to the city in one direction. And I would do that walk every single morning. I enjoyed the walk. It was a really interesting walk. Like, you see London, it's great. But I just also remember looking around and just seeing so many people like in their 50s, 60s, maybe even older sometimes, doing the same walk. And I was like, I don't want to be doing this same walk when I'm there. Like, what, where is this going, kind of thing? And I just didn't sort of, yeah, I couldn't see a sort of destination. It was only kind of journey, and well, the journey wasn't fantastic. So I don't know. It was sort of like, yeah, I'm not sure how to describe it other than that. I could see other people who were still doing this thing very late in their lives, and I just knew that I didn't want to be that person when I was that age doing that walk.
Yeah. I speak to quite a lot of people who are in a similar situation to you when you changed companies, and you get offered this new shiny opportunity, and then you move there, and then you end up getting yourself into the same position, and then you think, okay, I need to move somewhere else. I'll update my CV, I'll start speaking to people, and then move somewhere else. And you're always seeking that new opportunity to get that excitement again at the new place. What stopped you from doing that another time?
Well, I kind of went through a bit of a transformative phase at that point. I guess I was sort of 26, 27, was kind of going out more. And I don't know, my mindset changed at this point, because what I realized I'd been doing is chasing money. And I kind of figured out, and I'd also done a bit more traveling at this point in my free time. I'd started kind of getting excited about other projects. So I was kind of getting into music again. I used to love music when I was younger. I used to like have these little programs that I'd make music on, super amateurish bedroom stuff. But I'd sort of forgotten about that, and I'd sort of started to get back into that. I'd also helped my cousin's wife a couple of times run a food stall at a food market. She was kind of making tacos, and I suddenly got really interested in the fact that you could sort of make money on your own on the weekends. And I was like, man, I love cooking. Like why can't I be a chef? Like why can't I start cooking, and why can't I make my money? And I sort of said, it's very cliche, but I was like, I should stop chasing money. I should start chasing happiness. And like, what would make me really happy? Being a chef, because I'd started to get into cooking. I wasn't great. I just kind of, my mindset kind of changed. It wasn't deliberate. It just did. And but I was also desperately, again, looking abroad, trying to figure out ways to escape. And I started doing these markets on the weekend. And another way that I've been trying to make extra money was the flat that I've been renting. I also had it on Airbnb, which I shouldn't have had technically. But if someone was willing to pay for a week, I would go stay with my mum or something and make a bit of extra money. And out of the blue, someone offered to rent it off me for 2 months. And that would pay my rent, that would give me a place to come back to and a bit of spending money. And that was sort of the trigger for me. I was like, man, I can quit my job and go somewhere for a couple of months. And then that's what I did. I'd already made the decision that I wanted to leave. And I don't know how that came about, but that was the door that just opened and was like, there, go. And that's that. And so I quit. About a week later, I had a little think. I was like, right, yeah, this is it. So yeah, that was kind of the opener of the next chat. That was goodbye corporate, and that was kind of the beginning of like the next sort of phase of the journey, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, I love it. It's so good. It's
a lot of luck, you know.
The universe gave you the opportunity, right? So you had to take it.
It did at that point. Yeah, it's so that was basically it. And kind of the only thing I needed to kind of figure out was what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I had this little notebook. It's still around somewhere. I was like, right, I could fly here for this much and I could stay here for this much. And I did something kind of unoriginal. I was at a pub hanging with my cousin, and one of his friends just said, go to Bali, climb the mountain, go to the Gili Islands, you'll have the best time of your life. And that's what I did. And I said, I'll go there for 2 months. And whilst I'm there, I'm going to write a business plan about how to open a taco truck. That was like the sort of mental kind of vehicle that I was using to justify going away. I was like, I'm going to write a business plan. So when I come back, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to start doing food and start kind of that's going to be. And that kind of industry was kind of becoming very popular at that time. I think this was 2016, 2015, as street food was kind of coming up. So yeah, that was kind of the thing that got me out there.
Yeah. So you went to Bali for a couple of months.
Yeah.
You wrote a business plan.
Well, I didn't write a business plan. I didn't in the end. It was, bear in mind that this was also the first time that I'd ever had more than 5 days off in a row. Since starting work, it was completely different. And yeah, I went there with all the best intentions, but I ended up sort of just riding around on a moped and just staying at different, just kind of traveling. I just became, and just relaxing and just unwinding for the first time, and reading and doing all these, cool little things that you can do. I bumped into some old friends out there randomly, and yeah, just sort of ended up coming back without a plan, but still with the idea. I still came back here and came back to London, moved back into my flat, and started trying to go to markets. And I still tried to set up a stall and did it, and I ran it on weekends. It was called Sneaky Pig. I would rope in friends every weekend to help me out with it, but it became very quickly apparent that I didn't know how to make it into a business. I was buying all my produce from supermarket. Like, it was really amateur. It was really fun. It was super exhausting, but I kind of soon realized that I needed to actually kind of get a job again quite soon afterwards. Yeah.
So did you go back into a state agency, or what was your next step?
Kind of, in a way. So I kind of put my CV out there, and I got calls from recruiters, as you normally would do. And I was very kind of very specific with them. I was like, look, I don't want to work in an office. I only want to work part-time. I don't want to wear a suit, but this is my skill set. And they're like, okay, you know what? Thanks, but no thanks. And there was this one guy who said, okay, all right, I'll call you if I get anything, but yeah, I probably won't. I was like, okay. And then a week later, I think it was, I got a call from him. He goes, Jack, I think I've got you. I think I've got something you might be interested in. And it was he said, it's this guy called Rob. He's running this, it's a startup company. They're doing predictive analytics. It's really kind of new age, and they're predicting stuff, and they want someone who's got estate agency experience. Do you want to go and meet them? So I was like, yeah, cool. Is it part-time? He's like, yep, sure thing. Yeah, of course it's part-time. I was like, okay, cool. And then I went to meet them, and it was a small company, really interesting. They were called The Outside View, and they were predicting who was going to move house in the future based on loads of data, big data, like all trends and all this kind of stuff. Sounds very normal now, but back then in 2016, it was super new. No one else was doing it. And yeah, I met Rob, and he basically said what he wanted me to do was set up a team of people doing what I was doing before. And but it was in a small office. There were like 8 people there. He was like, you don't have to wear a suit. I was like, it's full-time, isn't it? He was like, yeah, it's full-time. I was like, okay, all right. But it seemed really exciting, being in this kind of new environment. And a startup, I was joining a startup kind of company. I'd never done that before, which was kind of interesting. And yeah, that I joined them after that, which again was really good, but it became very stressful again after a while. And I tried to leave after 9 months. He kind of, in a good way, kind of said, look, we're probably going to get bought in 3 months. Like they were trying to get acquired at the time, and they did in the end. He's like, just stay for another couple of months, and you won't have to work with us anymore. But it was an interesting realization that even though I'd escaped the corporate life, I was still busting my ass even harder than I ever had before. Like the thing with a startup that I found out, which is, it's not the most unobvious thing, is that the buck stops with you. If something doesn't get done and it's your job, it's your fault. Whereas when you work for a company with 100 other people, stuff gets done. It just gets done. If you need to do it slowly but surely, it gets done. And yeah, so it was. But again, I learned some really powerful lessons there, all of which I've sort of taken on, I think. But yeah, I was only there for a year. Met some very cool people who are friends of mine now. But it was hard. It was really hard. But he sold it, and he did really well out of it. And I'm very happy for that. It was a mission for all of us, and we kind of got there. But I was so happy when it ended. Like, it was relief. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. What a story. And then, so you're there for a year. You've gone back into a job. You've come out the job. what's next?
So what we were doing there was, at the time, I set up a team, like 5 of us maybe. I had to find them and recruit them without using recruiters. So it was salespeople. And this was before GDPR came in. This was like a year or two. And what we were able to do back then was go to a data broker, and we could buy lists of addresses, names, and phone numbers who lived at those addresses. And we would go to an estate agent in a postcode and say, we can purchase data on your behalf. We can call that data for you, and we can book you in to go and see valuations with people who wouldn't have otherwise called you in, and they might want to sell their house with you. And if we can get you 10 or 15 appointments a month, would you want to pay us some money for that? And that was basically it. It was a very simple service. It was Rob's idea, and yeah, it worked. We got lots of clients that wanted to use it. It was business out of nowhere as far as they were concerned, but it was cold calling, so it was hard. It was relentless. We had big targets, but I was kind of always thinking, I was like, well, wouldn't it be better if we were calling the estate agents' databases? You know, like, surely they've got all these warm leads in there, and etc. And I kind of spoken to Rob about that being an idea. And towards the end of the business kind of unfolding, he was like, Jack, why don't you take this idea, but just run with it yourself, but do it how you want to do it. Like, if you want to call an agent's database, like why don't you make that your thing? And three of the clients that were using us at the Outside View when they sold still wanted that kind of service. And so I essentially started freelance working for them once they had, once the business had kind of gone. I suddenly just started working as a sort of freelance consultant for them out of my kitchen. Like, where I was living in a house share. I was just like, right, I've got my laptop, I've got my mobile, you've given me access. And yeah, that was it. I mean, again, super lucky. It just sort of fell into place. You know, it was never part of a grand plan or framework or anything like that. And that it literally started like that. I registered my business name. Took me a couple of weeks to find one on GoDaddy that wasn't already taken, but I ended up with the name that I've got now. And yeah, and I remember billing my first month of invoices, and I got paid more than I'd been paid ever for 1 month just working with 3 clients. And that was the beginning of my business now. It was basically me doing the first job that I'd ever done in corporate estate agency, but now I'm doing it for myself out of my kitchen. And yeah, so in some ways I never really escaped. I'm just doing it in a much different, in a different way. Yeah, but that was the beginning of it. We do a lot of different things now, but that's kind of how it sort of blended into the next part, which is yeah, working for myself now.
Yeah, amazing. So a couple of things came up for me along that story. So one is around the security of a job. So when you started your taco business and it wasn't going well, you decided to go back into the job for the security. When you came to the end of that period and you had this idea to start your own business, was there part of you that thought, do you know what, it'll be much safer or less risky if I just go and get another job? Or were you so set on doing this?
Yeah, my mum wanted me to get another job. Actually, she was for a time like really always very concerned about the fact that I was not in a full-time role anymore. Actually, and I did have another job that was kind of lingering. I could have gone to, and she wanted me to take it. But I wanted to try this first. I kind of always thought, if it doesn't work, I can always go back to that. Like, it's there. It's not good. Like, there'll be stuff there, I hope, but it should be. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of, it didn't. I wasn't that worried about it personally. It was kind of exciting. I believed it would work, actually. Like I knew it could work because I'd seen it work already with the business I was with in a slightly different way. Like I knew it could work. All I had to do was get the clients to use me. And I knew what I was doing was very valuable to them. And I also knew that what I'm doing, no one else really does. They still don't. There's very few companies you can go to that will call your database effectively as an estate agent, and book you in valuations. Like there just isn't that many companies that do that. So I knew it was niche. So yeah, I was kind of confident in it. It might not have worked, and there's been a couple of times in the journey where definitely there's been times where we've come very close, actually, in the early days, and it always can go the other way again. It always can. You got to always, you're never invincible. So yeah forgot what you asked now.
No, that's great. And I was just thinking now, you mentioned around you're doing the same thing as you were in your first job, but you didn't mention that you travel the world. You're now living in Sri Lanka and you get to visit all these amazing places. So yes, you are working full time, but you're doing it on your terms, wherever you want. Doesn't look like you're wearing a suit.
No, I don't own a suit anymore, actually. Doesn't fit in my rucksack, unfortunately. No, and it's good. I've got a team now. I've got a business partner, Danny, who it's not just me at Agent. Like he is me and him together. Although I technically started it 2 months before he joined. Like he came on, and it wouldn't be what it is now without him. And so he joined around Christmas time. So I probably started it in September 2016. He was going for job interviews again for the same kind of companies we've been working for before. And I knew he was kind of in the area that I was in. So I said, Danny, let's go for a pint. And we always come back to this pint we had on the river, where I said, look, work with me. We can do it together. You'll make more money. You'll have more fun. It will be just us two. And he kind of had to think about it. And then he said, all right, F it. What can go wrong? And he took a chance, actually. He definitely took a chance. He believed in what I was telling him. And so he joined. And a couple of months later, it was February, and we'd rented these desks in this tiny little co-working space in London Bridge. And it was freezing. Like it was freezing. It was dark. It was miserable. And I was like, Danny, we don't have to be here. We could like be anywhere and do this. We just need internet. And he's like, oh yeah. I was like, yeah. And I'd taken a week in Lisbon for the first time. I said, why don't we go to Lisbon for a couple of months? Like test it out. And again, he said, yeah, all right. It's a good thing about Danny. He like says yes to things. And that was the first time I kind of experienced going away and working away. We found an apartment on Craigslist, believe it or not, right in the middle of town. We got a co-working space there. And we had the most incredible 2 months of working together, probably getting on each other's nerves, but also having fantastic time, trying to grow this new business of ours as well. We were growing the business, and it was, it kind of set the tone of the kind of lives we wanted to live. It was never part of a grand plan. It just sort of came up one day and we went with it on a whim. And Danny's happy in the UK now. He's not a traveler so much like me. He does short trips, but I've spent the last sort of 2 or 3 years full time moving to various different countries, but staying in them for a good sort of 5-6 months at a time at least. I do love the adventure, but I don't enjoy living in London anymore. It has negative connotations with the life that I was trying to leave before, the going out, the costs, the struggle, the weather. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to live in London anymore. It's really not. I love going back for Christmas. My friends, my family, they're there. But yeah, I find it very exciting being in different places.
Yeah, why not? And I wanted to ask you, so it was obviously a bit of a roller coaster, this whole journey. What would you say the biggest challenge was for you along the way?
I don't know. I never listened to a lot of advice. Not that it's sort of like, not that I didn't take advice, but I didn't know what I wanted, and I never really sort of planned around what I wanted. I was always taught to want, I think, like, to go to work, to get a job, to do all of that. I don't know, it's kind of subconscious, but the hardest part was just feeling, I don't know about helpless is the right word, but just very unhappy with no idea about how to get out of it. Again, I do consider myself very fortunate in terms of how things have ended up, but like, just feeling sometimes, knowing kind of that you don't want to be somewhere, but not knowing how to get out of it. It's hard. It's not like a slap in the face. It's a very consistent feeling of like unhappiness, and then you get that Sunday dread before you got to go back to work. It's how I used to feel at school. I didn't really enjoy school very much, but I had to be there. And yeah, you kind of, it's not, yeah. But again, like, well, I wouldn't change it. Like, it didn't do me badly. It did at the time, but I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now had I not got that. So I don't know what the lesson is if I tried to avoid that at the beginning of my life, what would I be doing now? No one ever knows. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, something came up for me then just around taking action, because when you get into that situation and things aren't bad per se, they're just not good. And very often we'll just get stuck into that routine and keep going with it and just be like, oh, it's okay. But again, as you say, you get the Sunday dread, you get into your routine again, and it's the same old, same old. And I think from what you've told me, things have happened for you, but you've taken action. Instead of just staying in that position, you kind of said, okay, let's try this food business, or let's try and travel, let's try. And although you didn't have an end goal per se, you just tried something.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta leap sometimes, I guess. I mean, I think if you've always got an opportunity to do something different, just try it. The worst that can happen is you just go back. You can always go back, but it's often the unknown that is the most scary thing, isn't it? It's like it's I think it's our nature to be scared of the unknown, because it could be danger. I guess it's part of our kind of DNA, right? To be cautious. But speaking of which, like the other thing I don't know is good for people is that grind the whole time. We definitely were not sort of evolved to live this life. And the commute, I haven't spoken about the commute. Oh my God, getting on the tube for an hour and a bit every day, one way, and then coming back again. It's bad for your health. It is. And not everyone, a lot of people don't have a choice. A lot of people just don't have a choice, and moving around and traveling to different places, you really do see how difficult some other people have things. If I think a tube journey is bad, and then I see how other people have to go to work and what they have to do for work, it's humbling at the same time. But it doesn't mean you should be thankful for something that you're not happy with just because you live in London. You should still seek some things that make you less miserable but happy is the thing. And yeah, I think for me a big thing is not I work full time, but I don't work 8 hours a day. I can work on my own time, and anyone that works with us in my business, my teammates, the rule is you get the job done, but you don't have to work hours. You just do what you need to do, get the job done. Doesn't mean you have to work between 10 and 12 or 12 and 6. It's just, yeah, that's like our philosophy.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think just something that you mentioned there about being uncomfortable, there's something around stepping into things that are uncomfortable or embracing the unknown so that you can experience something else. And so many people get stuck into this commuting or the job that they don't really like, but it's uncomfortably comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we become zombies. I mean, we get into a trance. I did, you do. Like, I'll know, like, and it doesn't take you long. Like, I'll go back to London after this trip, and I'll be on the tube, and I'll be looking around, and I'll be like, oh my God, look at all the people on their phone. I'll be very aware of it. But within a week, I'll be doing exactly the same thing. I have my head down. I'll just be. You get into a trance, and you just do it. Like, you do become zombies. You're part of the mass, and it's funny how susceptible humans are to becoming that. Like, we just are. Yeah. So, I so many things you can read and try and learn about, like conspiracy theories about being controlled and all of that. I don't know about all of that, but I do know that you can get large groups of people to just sort of accept things and just do it, even if they don't want to, by making them think they need to. It just is how, yeah. So,
yeah. No, I agree. What would you say the biggest lesson has been for you so far on this journey?
Best thing I did was get a partner that's late on in my journey, but I think getting a business partner to do something with me has been an incredible benefit to what I do. It's not everyone's idea of a good, a good thing. Yeah, I think I got that once. I read a Richard Branson book, again, very cliched, and he said, look, just hire people that are better than you and get them to get the experts to do it. Danny kind of fills a lot of holes that I'm not very good at. Like, he is very good at certain things that I'm not. And together we're very strong. And I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing as it works. So yeah, I think if you don't have to do it all on your own, seek out someone else that wants to do it with you, and it will make it half as hard.
Yeah, amazing. And before we finish up, one piece of advice you'd give your younger self. Let's go for when you were still in the estate agency world.
Oh, drink less, man. God. Yeah. Drink less, get more sleep. Take a day off if you're not feeling well.
It's hard to do when you're in that environment.
It really is. If you're well enough to call in sick, you're well enough to come in. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I wasted a lot of time when I was younger. Like, just so much time just being drunk and hungover. So much time. Sure, it's fun, and at the time, and I thought it was fun at the time. It's only in retrospect that I look back and go, actually, pretty unhealthy. But I did have fun. But yeah, it was also kind of not. It was at an unhealthy kind of quantity and regularity. It was Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, every week, Saturdays, maybe Sundays, and then you take your Monday, and like for years that was it. You take for years, and yeah, and I think back to that now, and it gives me anxiety when I think back to how I used to go out and how I used to socialize. It really does. So yeah, take care of yourself, young Jack.
Love it. So good. Jack, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Nice one, Leighton. Really good to see you. Thank you.
And there we have it. Thank you so much for listening. If you found value in this episode, make sure you share it with a friend so they can find value in it too. The biggest takeaway for me was around embracing the unknown. It's so important because if you end up doing everything in your comfort zone, your life becomes so boring, it becomes so monotonous, and it's very repetitive. Embracing the unknown is a phrase that I've embedded into my brain, and getting comfortable in that uncomfortable, enabling doors to open and enabling yourself chances to meet new people and explore a different way of living. It's so important. And if you're feeling like you haven't got the skills, you haven't got the confidence, or you haven't got something that's good enough to live the life that you want to lead, then just take action and take a little step. As Jack did on his journey, he took steps. He didn't know in which direction to go in, but it was steps outside his comfort zone to enable him to grow and become the person he is today. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you same time next week.